Anyway, back to this. I've got 45 grand's worth of tax deductions nearly, okay? The property is bringing in a rent, which is the opposite of tax deductions. It's taxable income. So I have to take the income away from my tax deductions. That leaves me with a net deductible figure of 26 grand. I can lower my taxable income by 26 grand. I've already paid tax on it, so I'm going to get a tax refund on that 26 grand, correct? And you say, oh, Steve, right, great, I got how it works, but are you kidding? I've got to wait till next June, July. I mean, I don't do my tax returns in July, so by the time I do it's nearly a year away before I get that tax refund. Wrong. Not only do we get the tax refund in the first place, which I think is brilliant, because you certainly won't get it in England, not only do we get it over here, which is great help, if we fill in a thing called a tax variation form, we can tell the tax department, we do this for our clients, that we're going to make a 26 grand claim. He says, okay, I'm going to write to your boss, and he will say to your boss, please do not tax that person so much anymore. I want them taxed less because they're going to make a claim. So in other words, you get the tax deduction in advance. In advance. It's a wonder we get it at all, but we get it in advance. You haven't had the expenses and you're getting it. You will walk home with an extra $150, $200 in your pay packet. Extra. You can't spend it because it's designed to help pay the costs of owning this thing. Now, if this is the cost of owning this thing, it's about 30 grand, right? Yeah? Add that up. It's about 30 grand. So if it's going to cost us 30 grand to own this asset within my business, so my business is to buy these assets, I've got a yearly cost of 30 grand in my business. Where the hell am I going to get the 30 grand from? This pie chart is the 30 grand, right? Who pays the 30 grand? The tenant will pay you rent each week or fortnight. The taxman will pay you $150, $200, give you back your taxable income. Give it back. And if there's a shortfall, the red bit, you find the shortfall. Oh, well, how much is the shortfall, Steve? Typically, worst case scenario, it's $100 a week. So, instead of putting $100 a week in a tin box under the bed, you can have another house. Your own house costs you more than $100 a week, especially if you've got a mortgage on it. The one that you run out and buy, and the one that you know, loads of people have got their own house. They're very proud, and so they should be. You know, I've got my own house. They're still going to fail financially because they can't find the $100 a week to go and buy another one. In fact, some people rent and have a stream of other properties because they're only costing them $100 a week, and then they'll go and buy their own one for cash. Sell some of them and buy some for that. I mean, that's a weird concept, so I don't want to get into that too much. But the point I'm trying to make is, for $100 a week, you can have another house. Now, here's the cruncher. Here's one of the reasons, or towards the reasons why I like property over shares, right? Because if you get this next little concept, if you understand this next little concept, you will understand how the rich get richer. And you will understand how to fast track your money, because this is the concept. It's as simple as this. The reason we can have another house for $100 a week is because we are using opium. Not opium. OPM. Other people's money. This is the cruncher. The more opium you can use, the quicker your portfolio will grow. We've got to be opium users. I'm being recorded here. You understand what I'm saying? Other people's. Who in this situation is the other people? The tenant and the taxman. Because until you started this strategy, you were happy to just let your tax go down the, well, not down the drain, but to the taxman. Half of it goes down the drain. Now you're getting it back. And you're getting some other guy called the tenant giving you money, and you are buying this asset. So what you're doing is you're using a small amount of your money to gain a much larger asset, right? Let me show you. If we are using $100 which is $5,000 a year, roughly. Yeah? We are gearing that up to a 400 grand asset. Now, here's one thing I like about property. I know, because statistics tell me, and I've lived long enough to see it happen for myself, to not have to argue with myself about this. So I'm suggesting you don't either, because you know I'm right. Property will double in value every 7 to 10 years. Right? I know it will, in any decent area. I can show you lots of areas that won't double, so we avoid them like the plague. But there's plenty more. There's more areas that will double than areas that won't double, quite frankly. So I know if this is my strategy, I'm going to find myself $100 a week. This is my business, yeah? Whether it's the 5th, 10th, 20th element of my business or the first element. What I'm going to do is I'm going to find $100 a week. I'm going to get this thing for 400 grand. The way I'm going to do it is I'm going to use somebody else's opium. Whose opium do I use? The banks, right? That's what they're in business for. They supply funds so that people can borrow the money and they live off the interest, right? They say they make money. So we can use their money. The bit you need to understand is the more opium you can safely get, yeah, safely and comfortably, it has to be comfortable for you, the more money you're going to make. Because when this thing doubles in value in 10 years, it's going to be worth 800 grand. My strategy is to sell it in 10 years' time. So in 10 years' time from today, I'm going to sell it. I still owe the bank the 400 because I had it on an interest-only loan. I pay back the bank 400 and I keep what's left. Now there's a Mr. Negative in the room, right? He's got negative stuff going through his head. I'm going to deal with you in a minute, Mr. Negative, all right? Don't worry, I'll answer your negatives, okay? A couple of them anyway. But getting back to my business, let's go one step at a time, Mr. Negative, yeah? I put $100 a week into my business, 5 grand a year. I did it for 10 years, which means into my business I contributed $50,000 over a 10-year period, and I turned it into 400 grand. That's it. That's how it works. Now, if you understand that you can see that if I can get the bank's money working for me and I can use other people's money like the tenant and the taxman to pay for the cost of the bank's money, yep, that's how I'm going to make money. I've turned 50 into 400. So, it's called gearing, as you can see. You've heard, some of you have heard the phrase and probably never really understood, well, you know, it's just a word, you know. But you're gearing or leveraging up your money. That's the way to fast track your money. Do you think Richard Branson uses his own money when he wants another jumbo jet? No, he uses the bank's money. Developers who develop, you know, townhouses or high-rises or shopping centres, they use the bank's money. They just know how to manage it. So all you have to do is understand, if you buy this thing, I don't care what it looks like, yeah? You just have to understand the money management of it. And if it boils down to you having to contribute 100 and you're comfortable with the 100, go get the 400 grand. So, if the bottom line is we want 400 grand working for us, this is one reason, another reason I like property. You walk into the bank, I've got to get 400 grand from the bank manager, I've got to get 400 grand. Mr. Bank Manager, I want to borrow 400 grand. He says, what do you want to borrow it for? I say, I want to buy some emus. He goes, what? Get out of here, you idiot, right? You go in the next day, Mr. Bank Manager, I want 400 grand. What for? I want to buy some shares. Oh, he goes, I don't mind shares. Let me ask you, how much are you contributing to this venture? Oh, I'm putting in $100 a week. That's 5 grand a year. Okay, I'll give you 10. He'll give you 2 to 1. So now you managed to gear up to 10 grand. Wasn't the goal. The goal was 400 grand. Mr. Bank Manager, I want to borrow, what for? I want to buy a property. Oh, he says, come this way. Please sit here. Can I shine your shoes? Would you like a tea or coffee? Would you like some muffins, Tim Tams, croissants? Because you see, the fact of the matter is, they will lend much more money against the security of property than they will the security of a share portfolio. So if your aim is to gear up as comfortably as possible, you want as much money working for you, you choose property over shares, because that's what the banks do. They make billions, don't they? They have a bigger loan book on property than they do on shares. Fact, go ask them. So if they do it that way around, I sure as hell ain't going to break the wheel. I'm going to copy them. And that's why I suggest it. That's why I said to you, it probably isn't for the obvious answer. It's just simply, I can gear higher with property than I can with shares. Okay? Now, Mr. Negative goes, yeah, but you've got to pay capital gains tax on that. Let me just address this tax thing, because this is how most people think. Is that a negative to not do it? I don't think so, is it? I mean, let me explain something to you about tax. I want to offer you all a job. Yeah? You're going to get this job and you can start as soon as you want, right? The job is well within your capabilities, you can do it, and it pays $360,000 a year. Would you take the job? I only got one nod then, 2 nods. You wouldn't take the job, or we're not playing the game? You would take the job, wouldn't you? Yeah. The catch is this, the tax is $145,000. Would you still take the job? Yeah. Yes, you're going to have to pay capital gains tax on that. Of course you are. We have to pay tax on money we make. But it's on half the gain, 200 grand. Half the gain at your marginal rate of tax at time of selling. So if you sell at a low marginal tax rate, you ain't going to pay much tax, are you? Maybe pay 60, 80 grand in tax. Would you still not do it? Isn't it better to make the 400 and pay the tax than not make the 400? Here's something that I know about lots of people, right? Lots of people can find the $100 a week. So over a 10-year period, you'd find your 50 grand. Would you ever, over a 10-year period, save $400,000? So, if you don't, you've got 2 choices, you see. In this money-making business, you've got 2 choices. You are either going to decide you are going to gear, even if it's scary, you're going to grit your teeth. I'm going to gear, I'm going to get some opium. Or you're not going to gear. Because you can't half gear, can you? You're either going to do it or you're not going to do it. It's like you can't be half pregnant. You've got to do the whole hog or nothing, right? If you're not going to gear, you can only use this money here. You can only get growth on your $100 a week, 5 grand a year. If you get 10% return on 5 grand a year, you're making 500 a year. Yeah? Or you can get 1% return on this and you make $4,000 a year. Do you get me? I mean, very simplistic with the maths there, but that's how it works. Leveraging your money, you must make more money. Okay?